Hey, we're going to be circling back on Intel. So currently it's at $30. The last time we looked at this was on March 17th, so about a month ago. And at the time it was trading at 29, so relatively flat. If we right here on the screen in the middle, we have a 1 month chart where uh, you can see a pop here, but that difference is from that $29 up to about 32, and then over the past maybe 2 weeks in the month, it slowly dropped back down to 30. So overall, not much growth. We did have a buy point marked at this one at 25. We'll see if that's changed at all. A resistance point at 54. We'll also see if that changed. But uh, there's a lot of news to go over, a lot of quick hitters, but a lot of articles you can see at the top. There's just many tabs here. I'll try to keep those as concise as possible, and then we'll wrap up with the technical analysis. So, at any point along the way, if you have a question or just a comment of something that maybe I missed, or you want to share your opinion on something, I'd be happy to read that. So, just leave that in the comments. But with that out of the way, let's just go into what's been going on with Intel for that past month. So they recently appointed this Stuart Pan to lead Intel Foundry Services. So they're trying to get into the foundry services, which is more in line with what TSM does. Intel's trying to do that. Their former head of Intel Foundry Services left. They're bringing in the Stuart Pan. He's apparently been with the company for, I want to say, 24 years or something like that. Maybe not. Maybe the other guy was 24 years. He started at Intel. He ended up going to H&P for 6 years, came back, um, and now he's going to be leading this. If they think he's a good fit, I don't see why it wouldn't be. Uh, but that was a change. Something else, an Intel exec is departing. So we have this Raja Kudri. He was the chief architect with Intel. He's not going to NVIDIA, even though it mentions NVIDIA. The reason why he's leaving is he wants to start his own thing. I think it mentions it has something to do with like videos, uh, generative artificial intelligence tools that work on chips. That's not the line I'm looking for. His first efforts will be aimed at creating a service that lets movie and game artists easily use those AI tools. So he's trying to do his own thing, and uh, I would imagine if this kind of works out for him, he might come back to Intel, or Intel might buy his invention if it pans out the way he wants it and how Intel wants it. Uh, this could be a win-win for everybody. But even with that in mind, they are losing an executive, and I think this one doesn't mention he's been with the company about 26 years. I don't know where I found that number. Uh, yeah, I have no idea. But somewhere along the line, I saw 26. Uh, Moving on, so Intel says their power efficient Sierra Forest chip will be delivered in first half 2024. So Intel's had always had kind of trouble with meeting deadlines, and so they're kind of saying, hey, we're actually kind of sticking to it this time, which is very good. We want to see more of that because they have big goals in the near term within like the next 3 to 5 years. And if they can stick to them, this company can become very relevant very quickly. So they announced its first semiconductor for uh, data center customers focused on power efficiency. That's the Sierra Forest. That's going to come out in the first half of next year. So that's something new. They're getting into that. Um, this thing, and this is one of the reasons, if I haven't mentioned it in the past, this right here is why I'm so into Intel and believe in this company so much, is that their market share is still greater than 70% of the PC and server processing type chips. So clearly they have a strong grasp on this market. I know they get bashed a lot for AMD's like closing in on them, or NVIDIA's coming out with these great softwares, and they are. It's just Intel has such a command of the market that if they can kind of pick things up in a, a decent time frame, such as they projected, like 5 years, this company can just continue to dominate. Of course, we'll continue to watch it, and it will take time. But if things kind of pan out as they're hoping it does, this is going to be a great pick uh, right now in like this $20 to $30 range. It really has high potential to grow. But moving on, Intel's most powerful fourth generation Xeon processor for data centers, the Sapphire Rapids. Um, I guess it was delayed. The delays in it allowed competitor like AMD to catch up. That's kind of been AMD's whole MO. And we do like AMD because, they took advantage. They also added this fifth generation Xeon processor, Emerald Rapids, was on track to be delivered at the end of the year. And the next generation, Granite Rapids, which customers are testing now, would be delivered next year after the Sierra Forest. And then next would be this Clearwater Forest. So all of these are just like they're progressing towards a faster chip, a just better overall targeting cloud and artificial intelligence. And so that's pretty much this article. If we move on, we see and Intel on track for this data center chip lineup. This one pretty much just goes into the 7 nanometer scale chip that will launch in the third quarter of 2024. The circuit width, the only other thing here was it mentions how, so the Clearwater Forest, which again, based on last article, is supposed to come out next year, first half of 2024. Clearwater's 2025. The 5 nanometer scale chip will succeed Granite Rapids. Right. Okay. So that's how it is. So Clearwater, that's going to be their first transition. They currently have 7 nanometer chips. Hopefully in 2025, they'll have the 5 nanometer chips, which NVIDIA and AMD already have. They're behind, but they're hopefully catching up. And then maybe in 2026 or something, they'll actually catch up to that 3 nanometer, maybe 2 nanometer chip. We'll see how that plays out. It also goes into, let's see, we'll wait. We have so many articles up, it wants to crash on me. Intel said it intends to play in the artificial intelligence market, which makes sense. And with its AI accelerators, the field programmable gate array for FPGA semiconductors. So we know AMD's big into that. We'll see how Intel kind of competes with it. And then the last piece for this article was how it mentions Blaine Curtis, if you're unfamiliar with him. This guy, when he says something, he can move the whole semiconductor market. So he's saying that his price target for Intel right now is 27, and currently it's at 30. So he's saying it's actually a little overpriced at this point. So I do kind of expect it to kind of pull back a little bit. And maybe that's what we've seen from it going from 32 back down to about 30. It might just have been because of what he said here. Man, it's really buzzing. We're just going to close some of these out. Hopefully we don't need to circle back to them. They're also coming out with their first quarter 2023 results on April 27th. So I believe that's Friday or maybe Thursday. So we'll probably circle back to this one sooner as opposed to the just kind of letting it cycle through. Next we have, this is just something that came up and I thought it was interesting. It shows the breakdown in terms of who's holding the shares, and it's basically saying that the institutions hold 62%, and then the regular people like us, we make up the other 38. Not too much in terms of insiders. Basically says own less than 1%. so that's why they don't even come up. It says general public here holds 38%, and then like I said, the institutions hold the other 62%, and it also says the top 25 hold about 39. So there is, there's not too much concentration in this, but clearly when you split it between just general public and institutions have the most control in this one. Next we have, oh, I love this article. So I'm not sure who this guy is, Larry Raymer, but he basically came out and said his personal stock price prediction is, bear with me, in 2025 will be $85 per share. This seems very outlandish today, but at the same time, I'm kind of in line with this guy. I feel like if Intel can make the moves that it's currently laying out for itself and for others to see, this is very doable. It's very doable. They used to have a very consistent range. If we go to the technical analysis just for a minute, they used to have very firm footing between 41 and 54. I think it's only a matter of time before we get back into that type of range. And if they can capture more of the like AI and these chips with the foundries, I think that's very doable for this company to reaccelerate their revenue growth. More on this, he touches on how they purchased Habani Labs, an Israeli company, back in 19. That's going to help them with AI. It said at a recent event, Intel reported its new Xeon chip working with its new AMAX AI accelerator engine, which was 4 times more efficient than AMD. Very positive sign there. He mentions how Statica, I'm looking for it. Where is this? Statista estimates that the value of the global AI market will more than double between this year and 2025, which would be $420.5 billion in the latter half. I mean, that's a lot of money. I'm hoping Intel can gather as much of that as possible. Let's see, a number of bullish sectors for them. Where was that point? Basically, where is that? No. A number of bullish sector trends. Oh, here it is. So a number of bullish secular trends, including the Internet of Things, the migration to the cloud, the proliferation of big data, remain intact. And so all those markets should add up to long-term growth for this one. And the last piece was they're likely going to get aid from DC and the CHIPS Act to help them build these factories in Arizona and Ohio. So those purchases shouldn't be as crazy expensive as if there was no aid. So we'll, of course, continue to watch that. They also made a deal with the Department of Defense. So you can see they're very interlocked with the government here. And that's another reason why I like them. I'm just not seeing the US government go to AMD for these things. I'm not seeing them go to NVIDIA. They're going to Intel. And so I just have very much optimism for this company. I feel like a lot of people support them, whether the people like us support them, maybe not today because they're not in the up and ups per se, but to me, just too many people rely on this to just overlook them. But the whole thing with them is they are working on streamlining the supply chain, and it helps with like encrypting the data. I'm not sure where that point was. Here it is. So Intel's solution allows the Department of Defense to streamline its supply chain, support ongoing semiconductor research, and develop and protect its vital capabilities domestically. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but that was more or less the gist of how they're helping the U.S. government, specifically the Department of Defense. Next, we have the Intel Foundry. So the IFS has made a multi-generation collaboration with ARM. If you're uh, if you remember ARM, NVIDIA tried to purchase them, I think 2 years ago, or maybe it was just last year. It feels like it was 2 years ago, and that deal ultimately fell through. They're supposed to have very high powered, just uh, a solid business in place. So solid that clearly NVIDIA wanted them, didn't fall through because it would have made the company too strong together. Well, here Intel is now working with them, and it's going to help them hopefully with what is it? Build low power, uh, build low power compute system on chips. Those SoCs on the Intel 18A process, which is new. I'm not sure if we touch on it during any of the articles, but it probably will pop up, this 18A process. Um, the collaboration will focus on mobile SoC designs first, but allow for potential design expansion into automotive, Internet of Things, data center, aerospace, government application. I mean, this is going to be a major deal. It doesn't go into more depth in terms of like how big the deal is. I guess it really is just a collaboration. We'll see how it kind of evolves over time. I'm very excited about that. So that is a big piece of news right there. Next, we have this one kind of just reaffirms it. Um, Intel's, where is it? So this one just, the points I wanted to point out are Intel's turnaround strategy hinges in part on opening up its factories to other chip companies, particularly those in mobile phones. It has said firms such as Qualcomm are planning to use its factories for future chip designs. And so this deal with ARM seems to be focused on trying to get them on equal footing with TSMC and Samsung. Once again, these are those chip suppliers. More Samsung's more for phones, but TSM does like everything, and so Intel is trying to get at them with this ARM deal, and it looks like they already have a big time customer considering them in Qualcomm. So that is going to be very exciting to see how this plays out. Probably over the next, say through 2024, we'll see how this plays out. Next, we have there's been U.S. sanctions on China, and basically, China's Vice President Han Zheng told Intel that he wants them to, on Wednesday, to take root in China to help preserve the resilience of the global industry supply chain. We're going to go into this more in this next article. So, Gelsinger, the CEO, he went on a trip mainly to talk to the guys from Qualcomm and ASML. ASML, they're going to help them get to that smaller nanometer chip faster. Qualcomm also, like we just mentioned, should help transition into building out that foundry type service. The other points here are China's chip industry is trying to navigate an array of new restrictions from the U.S. government, and basically why these restrictions are happening. For whatever reason, they threw this into the CHIPS Act. I didn't realize it at the time, but so this U.S. CHIPS Act, which is providing $52 billion to U.S. companies, and this is meant to help Intel, as I mentioned earlier, with these billion-dollar plants in Columbus and Arizona. Well, these restrictions, let's see, the draft rules. Okay, the U.S. Department released draft rules that would bar CHIPS Act money recipients from expanding leading-edge chip manufacturing in countries of concern, namely China. For Intel specifically, China apparently brings in about 10% of of its revenue. And I think that was just a coincidence that this happened to be here also at 10%. But companies also can't expand their capacity of existing legacy facilities in China. So if Intel owned an office already in China, they couldn't expand that more than 10%. Um, and can only build new legacy facilities in China if they would predominantly serve the Chinese market. This is because they're worried about just information spreading to each other, whether it be China's information to the US or US information to China. They're making a big stink of this. Right now, it seems like it's going to hurt China a lot more than us. We will see how this plays out. It also mentions how the U.S. also slapped tough export controls on sales of chips and chip making equipment to China last October and encouraged allies like Japan and Netherlands. Netherlands is important because that's ASML. Apparently, these companies are going to very sternly stop selling to China, especially like the new technologies, which is meant to like keep them behind. I'm not sure what like why they would do that necessarily. I'm sure there's a good reason, but it just doesn't seem right, at least not on the surface level like I'm seeing. But yeah, that's just kind of the news there. Uh, Moving on, let's see, Intel. Uh, they're going to be using TSM. Uh, they're just starting back into this GPU segment. It's very new to them, especially, and apparently it just seems to be more cost effective to use TSM's chips to incorporate into their GPUs. And that I can't imagine that would last very long. But again, it must be there must be finding it cost effective. Um, let's see. It also mentions how their graphic unit. Where is this piece? It mentions their graphic unit, their sales. So Intel's accelerated computing system and graphics business brought in less than $1 billion in revenue in 22, which is about 1% of their sales, so not much. And the unit generated operating losses of $2 billion, so not very good. But with that said, they did see growth in it. Intel's GPU unit lost lots of cash, but it still expanded revenue 8%. So they do seem like they're encouraged by what's happening there. Um, Even though it's losing money today, I think they're projecting in the future that it actually could be profitable. Next, we have Intel will challenge AMD's core count dominance. So right now, let's see, Intel's, I guess, top product is this Sapphire Rapids, which has 60 cores. AMD's Genoa goes up to 96. AMD plans on a cloud optimizing server chip with 128 cores. And so they're just blowing Intel out of the water. But Intel is saying by the first half of 2024, the Sierra Forest product will come out. It's going to use these efficiency-minded E-cores, which is new to me. They must have developed some new type of core system that apparently is very efficient. And with that, they're saying this Sierra Forest will top out at 144 cores, which is going to be very good for the data center market and hopefully expand in there. And it just goes on by saying if AMD has no change of plans, this will now put Intel in the lead again, and will regain the core count advantage when Sierra Forest launches in 2024. So that's still a year away, but again, progress is happening. We'll see how it all kind of plays out. Next here we have this was an article. Apparently, you need a subscription to this, and it's not worth it to me at this point. But we can't see the headline here. Talks about Germany pushes Intel to spend more on its $17 billion chip plant. So the notes that I did take from this were Germany is pushing them to expand its plans for a landmark $17 billion chip plant. The U.S. Semiconductor Group is due to receive $6.8 billion in subsidies. Uh, People close to the company said Intel wanted subsidies to rise to at least $10 billion, and Germany's pushing back saying, we can get up to that point if you can expand more on your facility. Intel's project Intel's project are being provided under the auspices of the European Chips Act, which aims to mobilize more than 43 billion euros in public and private investments. So you can see Intel's really working the system here. They're clearly capturing a portion of the U.S. Chips Act. They're also going after the European Chips Act, and just kind of trying to get a better global position. So again, positive thing here, and all these capital expansions that they're going after, it seems like they're not really going to be paying for the full 100%. Still going to be billions of dollars on their balance sheet and whatnot, but uh, it seems like it's really going to be, they're going to get all this new property and whatnot for half price essentially, because the governments and these CHIPS Acts are paying for it. Something else is Intel's discontinuing its Bitcoin mining chip series. Uh, so it clearly just wasn't a winner. They want to prioritize these IDM 2.0 investments, and so they're ending this block scale 1000 series, saying that no orders will be taken after October 20th, and the last product will be shipped no later than April 20th, 2024, so a year later. Just throwing that out there. They also mention how of these, like, I don't know what they are, blockchain type companies, only Hive was the one that like actually followed through on purchases in terms of like mass quantities, I guess, and it just wasn't as fruitful as they hoped, and so they got rid of that. In terms of the earnings that are coming out, so these are a quick hitter expectations. So they're expecting year over year to decline in earnings on lower revenues. They're expecting to post, here it is. They're expecting to post quarterly loss of 16 cents per share, and revenues are expected at 11.05 billion, which is down 40% from the quarter a year ago. So big drops, but again, nothing like surprising at this point. I think we all knew it, considering how much the semiconductor industry grew last year compared to this year. We knew there was going to be a decline, and we're just seeing the effects of that. But now going into the technical analysis, we'll zoom in a little bit. It's right at that buy point. It was trading / consolidating for the past about 6 months between 25 and 30. It most recently went above 30, but you can see pretty quickly it dropped right back down. Overall, it's... Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so previously I had a buy point of 25, even though I have a buy point of 30. I think I left it at 25 because I noticed it was bouncing between that range. The fact that it's at 30, I still think this is a decent time to buy, especially while it's kind of consolidating and building up this strategy. So I am going to add a second buy point of 30 in here. And otherwise, yeah, the fact that this pulled back, I'm not surprised by that. Could this one drop back all the way down to 25 again? Yeah, I truly think it will. There's not, I don't see, there's nothing that's really showing me that they should grow like much more than it has to like a 32 or like a 35, because everything that they're talking about is like at least a year away. And I realize people like do projections, but we need to see results first. So at least in the short term, I wouldn't be surprised if this one came back to like 25, 26, and then just kind of consolidate it here. Maybe it'll continue upwards. Again, we'll continue to monitor it, but for now, um, I think it's okay to buy. Again, I think there is a decent probability that it will come back down to 25. So I wouldn't be like super excited about right now, but the fact that it pulled back into this range between 25 and 30, I think it's a good time to buy. Um, Not opposed to it. I think my plan would be to just add in a couple shares just every once in a while when we check in. If it's at this buy point or less, just buy a share or two. And over time, if everything plays out like we want to and as Intel wants to, I think this one has a very high runway in the next like 5-ish years if we can be patient enough. Uh, but with that said, let me just update my stock tracker here, and let's see. And then I think financial statements are supposed to come out the 29th. So I just put that in there. We'll also say consolidating between like 25 and 30. So we'll see how it plays out. But so this is just a quick recap of the technical. So Intel right here in the middle, it's green. To me it's at a buy point, but it's currently at 30. Buy points marked at 25 and 30. Technically it's at 30. If we can get it at 25, even better. Resistance at 54. That's way out into the future. Financials coming out on the 29th, so we'll probably circle back in a week, preferably. And again, it's consolidating between that 25 and 30 range. So that pretty much wraps this up. If you want to share any insights that maybe I missed, or just, yeah, that I missed, or if you have any questions, by all means, let me know in the comments. But otherwise, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.